Last week, I talked to you about the 10 biggest mistakes that I've made as a business owner, and I'm flipping the script this week. We're gonna dig into the 13 best things I've done for my creative small business. Welcome back to another episode here on the Ashlyn Writes channel. It's episode 52, and yes, I am Ashlyn. I'm a conversion copywriter for creative entrepreneurs, which essentially means I love to work with creative small businesses to help you figure out how to make more money with your words. I also love to pull back the curtain and just be completely honest and transparent with you about what's going on in my business. Like I said last week, I talked through some of the biggest flashing red light mistakes that I've made as a business owner, but I also want to tell you now in this video 13 of the very best things that I have invested in or just spent time on in my business. Hopefully those will help you out as well. So look below. I love to talk to you guys. Find that comments box and I want you to chime in and let me know one thing that you've done that has totally paid off in your business. Now, it doesn't have to be an investment. It can be, but maybe it's something that you spent time on or a piece of mindset shifting that you have done and worked on. Also, while you're down there, hit that subscribe button and the little bell that goes next to it. That is how you are going to be first in line to know when this video drops each and every single week. Okay, I'm not messing around. Let's just jump straight into number one. One of the best things I've done is learn to look at my business and kind of play the game like an NFL player. I don't even watch NFL football, but go with me on this. So when I was sitting in a big room in my very first paid mastermind, my coach sat up at the front and she said, I've kind of had to learn to look at this like I'm an NFL player. I don't know when I'm gonna get taken out of the game. This did something in my brain and I started to learn that I really did need to work hard at setting up my business to run when I can't. If you followed my story, you know I have a history and a background of anxiety and depression, and I think I just learned the really hard way that sometimes I'm just gonna have days where it's just not jiving, or with pregnancy, I learned I have days where I just need to rest. When you are a small business owner, that's not always the luxury. There's not always gonna be somebody that can just pick up the slack when you're having a sick day. So really learning and putting things in place this year to set up my business to run when I can't, or just prepare it well. So if something happens and if I can't do this forever, we're not completely up the creek without a paddle. I hope that makes sense there, number one. That was a really big mindset shift, and I just loved the analogy that she gave of treating it kind of like you are a professional athlete. And number two, best thing I've done is commit to taking a sabbatical. Now, I've created entire blogs and videos on this. It is something that is so close to my heart. The first time I heard the word sabbatical, I was working in corporate marketing, and it was something that those who had 10 years tenure with the business were allowed to take. I remember hearing that and thinking that sounded so ideal to me. I love work. I think work is a really good thing, but I also love and need rest. Realizing that there was a tool out there that could sharpen me as a business owner and let me step away from my business was definitely something that when I started my creative small business, I wanted to implement. I've now taken 3 sabbaticals in my business, and this last one I took paid, which was really nice. I'll get into that more in a little bit. But this is something that's kind of a tradition now for my husband and I to take time away from work, to get to rest, to get to spend time together with one another, and it's been so very fruitful. Number 3, best thing, I kind of mentioned it, but joining a paid mastermind. Now, I think there's a lot of great coaching groups out there, but what I have learned about myself is that I show up for the things I pay for, not always for the things that I don't pay for or the things I get for free. So I put skin in the game this year. I invested in a 5-figure mastermind, and oh my gosh, it was life-giving. I have a few tips for you if you're looking for one yourself, because I get asked a lot. One of the biggest things, I didn't realize how alone I was. I'd struggled with finding an opportunity to be around peers where I was a little more like the dumbest person in the room, but also had something to contribute. You know, when you get that sweet spot where you're kind of in the middle, I was having a really hard time finding that sweet spot. Then I landed upon this mastermind and it was absolutely fabulous. One thing I learned is to really focus on finding that leader that approaches business either in the way that you want to or in a way that's similar to yours. It was important for me to find a coach who looked at finances and life and balance the same way that I did. I think there's a lot out there that I was afraid if I hopped into it, I would feel hustled out. I would feel like I wasn't good enough or that I needed to push further. And instead, I found one that really did value balance and rest and the internal work just as much as business growth. Number 4, I've worked really hard to set tight, email rules, and personal rules. My students inside my Art of Efficiency program know all about these because I'm really big on going ahead and setting up your own rules. For example, knowing that I only get in my inbox 1 or 2 sessions a day, each for an hour each, max capacity, is fabulous. That and tracking my time are things that I implemented pretty early on in my business. I'll link a couple of resources below. Nancy Raid's Email Ninja freebie resource is fabulous about this. I also have a time tracker and some more blogs and information on how I've tracked time in my business. But realizing that Parkinson's Law was at play in my inbox was very important to me. The amount of time that we have that we dedicate to a certain task is the amount of time it's going to take us to do that. So if I'm giving myself 4 hours to get through my inbox, it's going to take me 4 hours. But if I shrink that space to an hour, I can get through it. Number 5 great thing I did is set up what I call a Finance Friday workflow. I batch days in my business. I've done a video on that. I will link that as well. But on Fridays, I got really specific about a workflow where I pay off the business credit card. I pay myself. I run payroll for my team. I go through and look at our P&L. Basically, any and all tasks that have to do with finances, I do them all on one day. This was helpful for me because otherwise, I would skip the financial tasks in my business. But when they had a dedicated day and dedicated time every single week where I would focus on them and I would pay myself and I would make sure that everything was buttoned up in the business, that made things a lot better. If you're interested, also below, if you could let me know. I've never published my Finance Friday workflow anywhere. If that would be something that's helpful for you, I'm happy to do that. It's pretty easy. It's like 10 steps. And I'll do that if you want it. Number 6, instead of planning annual goals for my business, which is what I tried my very first year in business, I nixed that completely and started planning just in 90-day increments. Todd Herman's 90-day year program is great for this, but you can basically piece it together on your own. It's just the idea that you need to be nimble as a creative small business owner. When I was setting these huge, long, drawn-out annual goals, I wouldn't give myself the space to be nimble and change, and if a new idea or an opportunity came up, to put that into place. I also started reading here the book Scrum and some other more sprint-style ways of management, which sounds a little nitty-gritty, but even as a small business owner, that was so helpful. I'd never seen anything like that before when I worked in corporate business. It was all huge, long goals. And so the idea that I could just focus on 90 days at a time, that's all. Light bulb moment for me. Number 7, I hired help. I've talked about this at length, but I always thought that you had to enter this certain bougie status of business ownership to be able to have somebody contract for you or delegate to somebody or have somebody on your team. And then I realized that it was okay. I didn't have to reach this certain status level as a creative small business owner. It was something that I could get pretty early on in my business. I needed so much help when it came to things that I wasn't very fast at, things I wasn't good at. One of the very first things I outsourced, speaking of money, was bookkeeping. I remember the day that I was able to hand that off. Before then, I was spending so many hours every single Friday working through and trying to budget out everything. Yes, I learned a lot in doing that, but this helped me immensely. Number 8, I committed to reading a lot, and I still do. I'll link below a blog post I've done if you're interested in learning to read more as a creative entrepreneur, but I think we spend so much money on online education and courses, but remember books? Learning how to be a good reader has been really important as I've become more of an entrepreneur and stepped into more of a business ownership and leadership capacity. I'll link a few resources for you below that have helped. One is Michael Hyatt's Leader Box subscription and getting those every single month. I'll also link the blog post that I did with some tips to help you become a better reader. Number 9, I started an email list before I was ready and committed to weekly content. I listened to podcasts right before I quit my job and kept hearing that I should start an email list. All the gurus were talking about that. And I thought, well, I'll go ahead and I'll try it. Once I did start my email list, and some of my students know this, I didn't send anything because I didn't know what to send. But at the beginning of 2017, this was about 11 months into business, I found myself sobbing, sitting with some girls, and I said, you know what? I realized I've just spent an entire year building other people's businesses, and I haven't done anything to build my own business. Right then and there, I committed to 52 weeks of showing up in people's inboxes, and that's all it took. It's like all I needed to do was vocalize out loud to myself, myself that I wanted to commit to emailing regularly, and I did it. Number 10, I said no to things, and I still do. I'll link a blog below where I talk about a list of things that I say no to. But one of my favorite Bob Goff quotes is, "It's Thursday, quit something." Recognizing that I don't have to say yes to every single opportunity that comes into my inbox was a big shift for me. Again, if you want to hear more about that, go look at last week's video, those mistakes that I've made in my business. Number 11, I got a healthy outlook on Instagram. As a creative small business owner, Instagram is where many of us do a lot of our marketing, and I used to let it get to me. What I've found here is go find a teacher or somebody who seems to have a pretty healthy outlook when it comes to Instagram and learn from them. What I did is learn from one of my own clients. So Jenna Kutcher is one of my clients, dear friend, and I wrote the launch copy for her course all about Instagram. And then I went and purchased it. Again, transformation's in the transaction for me, so I show up for things that I paid for, because she texted me immediately and she was like, "Ashlyn, you already have access to it." But I knew if I didn't pay for it, I wasn't going to take it. Spending that money and learning a little bit more about her outlook on Instagram really shifted the way I looked at it. I was gonna be in social media in some capacity as a small business owner. I needed to learn how to be in that field, but also not see it as my worth and as my personality and as my identity. Wrap it up here at number 12, I got clear on how I was going to handle haters, copycats, and refunds. If you deal with refunds in your business, I'm going to link a great episode below from James Wedmore's podcast. He talks about how to see refunds and recast them in your mind to see that it's not a bad thing. Going out there, that means that you really pushed for it, you went for it, and some refunds are going to come in. I'm so proud that we have under a 2% refund rate across the board in my business. That said, if you're gonna be in business, you're gonna have things like haters, copycats, and refunds. Getting a really good agreement and contract in place, having a relationship with an attorney that I can call anytime that I see something out there or somebody lets me know, "Hey, this got ripped off from your work," that has put me at ease at night. Finally, lucky number 13. I invested a chunk of time into building a financial plan that I actually kind of love. I was really slow to pay myself every single week. I just hoarded the money that the business made, terrified it would all go away. And I also said yes to everything out of fear that the work would disappear. I kind of knew how to price myself competitively in the market, but I didn't quite understand what overhead was and how that came into things, or really what my take home needed to be. These were all things that as a words person just kind of intimidated me a little bit, and I guess I buried my head in the sand a little. My husband is brilliant when it comes to math, and so this totally led to a lot of different arguments over the finances. Obviously, he didn't think that I needed to quit my corporate marketing job just to come home and not pay myself, even though the business was bringing in money, but I was just too afraid to do that. We spent a month working one-on-one with my sweet friend, Shanna Skidmore, going through the Blueprint Model program and applying that both to our personal finances and also to my business's finances. So now I have a revenue plan in place. I know exactly what we need to hit in each capacity, in each category every single month. I know what enough is. I know at the beginning of the year how many clients I need to have, and then I can call it quits after that, which is really nice. So I just mentioned a tool called Blueprint Model. If that piqued your interest and you think I need some sort of a financial plan like that, well, every year I lead a crew of incredible women through the program in conjunction with what Shanna is doing. It opens up in January every single year. If you want to get on the wait list to partner up in that capacity, look down below and you can see the link to the wait list. Don't forget, chime in below. Let me know one incredible thing that you've done in your business that's absolutely paid off. If you found this video helpful, give it that thumbs up, and I'll see you back next week with an all new video.